Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Carrow Road. Recognise him? It's Chris Hughton. As I said on the Ball podcast this week, I feel a bit sorry for Chris because I think, maybe last year some of the fans would have taken a few 1-0 wins and finishing 11th in the Premier League. But there we go. That is for another day. As I said, welcome to Carrow Road, where Norwich City have won their 10th game of the Championship season. No one else has done that yet. First team to do it, only team so far to do it. They have somehow managed to stay top of the Championship with a 2-1 win here against Chris Hughton's Nottingham Forest, which of course in itself is great. On top of that, Norwich now find themselves 4 points? Yeah, 4 points ahead of... I have tweeted this. 4 points ahead of Watford, who are third. So that's a decent buffer for this point in the season. And 7 points clear of Brentford in 7th, which of course is effectively the top 6 in the playoff places. All of it with a crippling injury crisis. So you therefore have to say that Norwich's squad really is of supreme quality and ability for this level, because they are withstanding the difficulties. They're maintaining their philosophy and their style, probably to a greater extent than I thought. And they're picking up wins and points. It's remarkable. I think there's lots of things that are remarkable about this. It's remarkable how Daniel Farke has got the team so together. I think a lot of what they wanted to do at the end of last season in terms of getting the signings in early, getting a fair few of them in, has worked a treat once Norwich started getting some points in. I thought the fans made a difference tonight, and especially in those last 5 minutes when Nottingham Forest 2-1 down were putting on a bit of pressure to try and chase the game. Jacob Sorensen got the first goal. It was a lovely crisp strike straight under Samba in goal. He is such a good quality player. I don't think I've ever seen a quieter player on a football pitch. He doesn't... If someone misplaces a pass or someone tries to play him in, it's just a bit long, he doesn't react to it. He doesn't sort of say good pass or anything like that. He's just so deadly quiet and calm. But what a technically proficient footballer who's only 22 and learning so much. And he hasn't even played in his, barely, like a few minutes. He's occasionally appeared in midfield, sometimes as in a back three as a centre half, which is slightly closer to his natural position of a sort of number 6. The rest of it has been at left back, and I know Norwich have had issues elsewhere on the pitch, but the fact we've barely really spoken about how short Norwich have looked at left back is just a huge compliment to the job that Jacob has done. And the quality of his goal tonight, it's just a pleasure speaking to him afterwards. I think everything he's feeling really good about everything at the moment, and so he should, because he has done a remarkable job as well. There were a fair few good performances tonight. I thought Grant Hanley was outstanding at the back, until at one point where he just ventured forward and lost the ball. He'd been perfect up until that point, both in his usage of the ball and how he was defending most situations. And it was a big night for him, with Ben Gibson being out, as he will be for the next couple of weeks with a calf strain. Christoph Zimmermann coming in behind and slotting in fairly seamlessly. I thought Ollie Skip was magnificent and has been for a few games now. And the probably other person I'd like to point to is Todd Camwell, who came on just after Forest equalised, which was sort of midway through the second half. It was annoying that Daniel Farke didn't make changes until basically straight after Forest equalised, because the dynamic of the game was kind of screaming for it a bit. Now, some of that may have come from the fact that Norwich had Jordan Hugill, Camwell, Kenny McLean, I think there was someone else as well, all on the bench, and they were basically mascots because they've barely trained. Dowell's been out for months. They should have been nowhere near the bench, but I think the idea, as Daniel said, was to have them there so that everyone would look around and go, look at these guys, and they'd be involved in the group and just help with the morale, which probably worked. Kenny got on the pitch, which was remarkable in itself, because we were fearing he'd be out for months. So a sort of a morale booster rather than these guys being fit and ready for action, but they've all survived it tonight. But great to see Todd come in. And when he came on the pitch, as I said, at a moment when you would have hoped Norwich would have you'd have hoped Daniel would have made a change before it went to 1-1 rather than after. Daniel Holker there, desperate to have a wave mid-video, which is nice of him. Todd came on, and still in the back of my head was his first 45 minutes against Brentford, which were pretty awful, to be honest. I thought he came on and he was fantastic. He moved the ball around well, got into good positions, and then creates the winning goal, which was a significantly deflected strike from Emi Buendia, but it went in, wrong-footed samba, and I had a conversation with Chris Gorham. I mean, it's definitely Emi's goal because the initial shot was on target. The fact that it took a massive deflection doesn't make it an own goal. So that's what I said to Chris Gorham too. But Todd helped make that with his impact, and I think that's brilliant to see, because if we have a Todd Camwell in this squad who is both feeling fit and healthy and confident and really aggressive at what he could do at this level, I think that's a fantastic asset to have. So that would be wonderful, and it was really encouraging to see that, especially when Norwich are trying to get some of the bodies back. I think I've mentioned the process of the goals there. Norwich got 1-0 up right on the stroke of half time. Great time to score. They were then a bit passive in the second half. They did play very well a lot of the game. They were very patient and probing in the first half. As I said, got a little bit passive in the second, and then they conceded a goal where essentially Clockhart had just come on the pitch. Obviously a player of huge quality, puts a lovely in-swinging ball in, and Guerrero tries to flick a header, doesn't make contact, but the ball nestles inside the far post. I mean, it's questionable goalkeeping to a degree, but also it's a very difficult ball to defend because you're trying to guess whether the striker is going to make contact or not. So it's very difficult to be in two places at the same time. But I'd say Norwich then got back ahead pretty quickly after. Norwich also should have had a penalty for handball in the first half. I think that's fair to say. And the dynamic of the game, ultimately, Norwich did more than enough to win it, and deserved to win it, I think, in the end. Chris Hughton felt quite aggrieved, but it's a tricky one for them because they looked quite solid and they were quite patient. You can tell that they're struggling for goals, and that I think Chris is struggling to find out what happens with them at the moment. He's not too worried about their relegation fears, but they are not in a great place in the table. Much like Sheffield Wednesday, it has to be said, down here on Saturday as well. It did get a bit testy with Emi. I think there was a period in the second half where it was 1-0 and Forest were a bit on top, or at least threatening. Emi put in a couple of tackles that he got penalised for. He slashed a couple of passes wide. I think at one point Daniel Farke had shouted at him to do something. Emi then basically, when he got near him, shouted back and wasn't having it. After Emi scored, he quickly after that gave a signal to come off to the Norwich bench, and then he did come off. Daniel Farke said it was mostly for cramps rather than any muscle injury, which is of course good news. And when he did come off, him and Daniel Farke had quite a long hug, and you can just tell when people are making up, and that was basically what that is. I mean, I continue to be entranced by Emi Buendia, the man and the footballer, because he's just a firecracker of all sorts of things, and I would not know what to do with him if I was managing him. And then you see him just scoop up these little passes to play over two defenders, taking them out of the game and switching the play first time. Such a talented footballer. You take Emi as he is, of course, but he is just a joy when it's coming off for him. And bit of luck with the goal, but I think luck is a funny thing in football, because a lot of the time you do make it. Norwich are unlucky in the Premier League generally because their opponents are deserving to make their own luck because they're better, and I think we're seeing a bit of that in Norwich's favour now in the Championship, because they are absolutely flying. As I probably said, remarkable that Kenny McLean is back on the pitch. There are some bodies who are edging closer to getting back in. Hopefully there'll be more coming over the coming weeks. It would be nice to think that by the time we're heading to Reading next week, Tim Krul will be back in goal. That would be a huge bonus if it could happen. And they're in a great place. Long may it continue. I will see you up at Blackburn on Saturday. Can't wait for that long old poke. Make sure you read all the stuff on the Athletic. It's great. There's loads of stuff coming up this week as well. And we'll see how we get on at Ewood Park. In the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Leave any comments, subscribe. I read them all. And subscribe to the channels. I'll see you soon. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your week. Top of the league.